Allô, Nissan? Hey, grosse tempête, hein?
Hey, Karine, oui, je sais, les vilains bonhommes de neige sont de retour.
Mais avec le Nissan Rogue à traction intégrale, c'est pas stressant.
Exact, il est conçu et testé pour nos hivers. Oh, Karine, il y a un bonhomme dans le Rogue.
Ah, c'est correct. J'ai allumé les sièges chauffants.
Ah, bien joué, Karine. Maîtrisez toutes les conditions. Louez le Rogue S 2026 à partir de 0,4% jusqu'à 36 mois, incluant une réduction fidélité de 0,5% pour les clients Nissan admissibles. Jusqu'au 2 mars, sur approbation de crédit, les conditions s'appliquent. Détails chez Nissan.
From not too far away, from Belleville, Ontario, Avril Lavigne. The tune is Keep Holding On. And today on the show, we're playing some Canadian artists. We've booted out all the U.S. artists we play, and we're bringing Canada back. Let's get into the swing of things here with Mitch Joel. You know him and love him as a tech advisor, investor, and author. And he's also the founder of ThinkersOne. Mitch, welcome back to the program.
Elias, thanks for having me. Just before we go forward, I want to thank you and everybody at CJD for being somewhat of a steady hand, intelligent voice, and having great conversations, because I think we spoke earlier on Second Breakfast with Andrew Carter that I'm feeling the anxiety. And I do find that listening to this, while I'm sure it is amplifying the anxiety, it is helping to hear these voices. So thanks for doing that. Appreciate it.
I got to say, maybe the best point we had at one point, I gave everyone a breathing exercise, right? I said, everyone got a deep breaths here for a second. Of course, the stock market has rebounded after a tweet from the Mexico president. Anyways, this is how the world works right now. I want to talk to you just off the top here, because we have to get to big news in the artificial intelligence wars. Let's start off briefly on the trade wars. Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced this morning that he's ripping up a $100 million contract with Starlink. Of course, Starlink is Elon Musk's company. They provide satellite internet. And Quebec has a similar deal. It's much smaller, but they've got a similar deal. François Legault said, no, we're not changing anything on our internet. What do you think about that? What do you think about, some of the retaliation measures and whether or not they're actually useful?
Pragmatically, we need to do everything possible in this moment to avoid a recession. I mean, that's really should be the primary goal of everything. I think the macro call, and based on this, is a wake-up call, which is that we as Canadians have been innovators in all of these spaces forever. We've had a brain drain. We allow these companies to grow and then get acquired in the US and in other regions of the world. And I am very hopeful, as I said this morning again, that perhaps this is forcing the hand of a wake-up call. And while I can appreciate the actions of Mr. Ford and appreciate what it could mean, it's going to impact 15,000 eligible homes, which, by the way, need access. So it's not like we don't need access. But we have infrastructure here. We have the abilities to develop this technology, to deploy this technology and build thriving businesses that could actually compete with companies like Starlink. And I really believe that based off of who we train out of places like Waterloo and HEC here and beyond. This should be the prime directive. I think you heard it very well in the last segment too. We should be in a place where people want to export what we do, not having us constantly export the talent that does it.
And just to that end, you mentioned the 15,000 homes, right, in Ontario this could affect. There are thousands of homes in Quebec, right? The last little leg of homes that haven't been connected to high-speed internet. Depriving homes of high-speed internet hurts you long run. It really does. Now, I certainly hope we have Canadian solutions that could come, but I'm not so sure they're there, at least not yet. Okay, so Mitch, let me switch gears. I want to talk about DeepSeek, right? That's that Chinese artificial intelligence, large language model released open source. So I want to talk about that first. What does that mean? Because I've heard people say, oh, DeepSeek is open source. What does that mean, and why does it make their announcement so impressive?
So ultimately, what we're doing is making the actual system and the code available for anybody to use freely. And so what you have is a world of OpenAI, which made this promise of making AI accessible to everybody. And suddenly it's moving from even charitable status to for-profit. And we can talk about just the exponential development and the cataclysmic impact of something like this model being released so quickly and suddenly to everybody. But what it is essentially doing is allowing anybody to grab this and use it internally, giving them speed, CPU access that is similar to the best reasoning model that we have currently on OpenAI, which, by the way, competes at a PhD level in terms of what it can output.
So do you think long-term open models or closed models will win? I should point this out. OpenAI, right? They're closed. I know it's called OpenAI, but it's a closed model, right? So what do you think long-term, what wins in the artificial intelligence world? Is it closed models or open models?
Look, we've had both, and we already, by the way, are seeing that companies like AWS and Azure, which is Microsoft, there's another one called Hugging Face, they actually operate on an MIT open source license independent of DeepSeek's infrastructure. So they've grabbed this and have made it now accessible in that way. So when you say what wins, well, clearly open source will win because it's free and accessible and people can add and you can build community around it. We've seen that, but profitability, control, things like censorship, data, those become the problem. So it's not, I don't think it's an either or. I think ultimately it's an everything is with, not instead of model. And because of the concerns of what AI is and can do, it becomes, I think, a more fierce debate. But I'm currently not in one camp or the other. I see benefits to closed models and I see benefits to open models.
So Sam Altman, who runs OpenAI, CEO of OpenAI, what's he saying about this? Because obviously I think it's it can be perceived as a threat to his company.
There's no doubt that everybody was taken aback by this. Now, I should say that DeepSeek wasn't created last week and released last week. We've been talking about this in the nerd circles since January. It was its ability to replicate and get to the same reasoning model this quickly that threw everybody off. And then when tested it, it was agreed. The Sam Altman statement that I think made everybody laugh is that he came out and says that DeepSeek was using or used its work without permission to create the AI. And the irony there is we all know that OpenAI used a lot of general accessible data that they didn't pay for to build their model. And a lot of musicians are kind of raising their hands in the world of irony here saying, hey, now you know what it feels like to be a musician in this day and age or an artist. And this is the
So it was pot calling kettle black. Like if you're going to accuse the Chinese, and by the way, Chinese tech companies have stolen a lot from North American, Canadian tech companies in the past. But is this pot calling kettle black that OpenAI also stole a ton?
It is a little bit in a world where the first rhetoric came out saying, is it real? Does it work? Is it truly this? We're going to have to test it. I think once those hurdles were passed, and it did that very, very quickly, it became, well, how did this happen? Because really, that's the big surprise is that, these AI models don't necessarily need expensive high-end chips or even hardware to build an impressive model. And again, as a reminder, this came several days after the announcement of Starlink, which was the US's infrastructure AI program.
Stargate. Yeah.
Sorry, Stargate. I think you made the same drop.
Yeah.
I should remember it's the MacGyver story, right? But yeah, so $500 billion into AI data centers with OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and others. So you're seeing this $500 investment thinking compute. We need all this power. We're going to be the leaders. And there's this American exceptionalism happening. And suddenly within a few days, actually for sub $6 million, you can build a model like this.
Mitch, we're going to have to leave it there. It's always a pleasure to catch up and talk tech with you. Come back real soon.
Have a great day. Thanks, Elias.
Mitch Joel is founder of ThinkersOne.